A traitor's reward. The metallic chill of the chair gnawed through Eli's clothes, a merciless contrast to the warm, sluggish trickle of blood meandering down his temple. The iron scent mingled with the damp air, painting the small chamber with the aroma of treachery. The blood was fresh, a crimson signature of his betrayal, signing away lives that couldn't be reclaimed. His erstwhile comrades stood before him, no longer brothers in arms, but executioners in waiting. Tommy's jaw clenched, his teeth grinding like millstones, the weight of Eli's confession echoing in his mind like a funeral bell. Shadows pooled beneath his eyes, dark with sleepless nights and burdened resolve. His knuckles whitened as his fingers curled into fists at his sides, but his voice, when it came, was cold and controlled. Too controlled.
Specifically where?
Tommy's demand sliced through the suffocating silence, sharp and unforgiving, a scalpel poised to carve the truth from Eli's lips. Eli swallowed hard, his throat dry as dust.
An underground cell,
He rasped, each word trembling under the weight of impending doom.
beneath the east side cathedral spire. That's where they are holding Sage. You can get to the basement level, through the underground parking garage.
The mention of their mother, the wraith, the beating heart of the rebellion, dangled before them like a crucifix in the hands of a dying martyr. Hope. A spark ignited in Tommy's eyes, but it wasn't warmth. It was something colder, sharper, the glint of vengeance restrained by purpose. Danny, prowling like a restless predator, froze mid-pace, his fists clenched tight at his sides. His breath hissed between gritted teeth as his body vibrated with unspent rage. His blue eyes, once filled with boyish mischief, now burned with something feral.
You swear?
Danny's voice was a low growl, the sound of a wolf circling its prey.
You're not playing us? You know what happens to your family if you are.
The threat hung heavy in the air, a blade suspended by a fraying thread. Eli's head bobbed like a puppet on frayed strings.
Check my intel.
He whispered, desperation thickening his voice.
Check with the hacktivists. You'll see it's solid.
His words tumbled out in a frantic rush, his eyes darting between them like a man drowning, searching for a lifeline.
My contact complained enough about the extra patrols Pilatus had stationed in that part of the cathedral.
Eli's breath hitched, his throat convulsing with dread.
He didn't know who she really was, just that Pilatus called her his precious writer pet. Extra guards, inside and out. But with manpower stretched thin, they only reinforce that one side. The hackers, they should see the increased activity through the DCCCTV.
Tommy's eyes narrowed, dissecting every word. Lies would be sniffed out like a rotting corpse, and Tommy would not suffer. Lies. An unspoken exchange passed between the brothers, a dialogue carved from years of survival and trust in a world where trust was a liability. Danny's brow furrowed, suspicion coiling around him like smoke, while Tommy's expression remained carved from stone, unreadable, yet deadly. But they both felt it. The weight of their situation pressed down, heavy as the earth that would bury them all if they failed. Eli's confession was a thread pulled from the fragile lace of their rebellion. One wrong move and everyone would unravel. A chill seeped into the room. not from the cold stone walls, but from the sense of something far darker closing in. Tommy's voice was quieter when it came, but no less dangerous.
If this is a trap, Eli,
He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. The threat was a promise etched in the blood of Eli's family. Eli's head dipped, eyes squeezing shut as the enormity of his sin bore down on him.
I swear, that's all I know.
And somewhere in the back of his mind, as he faced the judgment of the boys he watched grow up, Eli wondered if Judas had felt the same icy knot of dread after the silver touched his hands.
all right.
Tommy's voice was low but resolute, a whisper of thunder that rumbled just beneath the surface. His eyes, sharp as obsidian, scanned the darknet reports from his mother's contacts, his expression hardening with grim resolve. The flickering glow of the monitors cast jagged shadows across his face, carving deep lines of exhaustion that even his youth couldn't smooth away.
We move fast.
He murmured, as if speaking the words aloud would bend fate to his will.
Before Pilatus realizes we're onto him.
Maps sprawled across the table like sacrificial offerings, veins of red string connecting cities, outposts, and danger zones. Maps of war, drawn now in the blood of the fallen. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, sterile and cold, but they could not dispel the oppressive weight that thickened the air. Gunmetal and old paper mingled with the scent of sweat and fear. Each rebel captain crowded around the table, their faces etched with battle-hardened resolve, but behind their eyes lurked a shadow of unease. Fear, not of death, of failure, for the future, and never for themselves, only for those that would be left behind.
We can't ignore this chance.
Tommy declared, his finger tracing a jagged route on the map. His touch was light, but the gravity in his tone was heavy, like the stone door to a dark tomb.
It's time to hit them where it hurts.
A scarred veteran, his face a road map of past battles, nodded gravely. His voice, barely a whisper, carried the weight of a soldier who had seen too many comrades buried.
Agreed.
But not everyone was convinced.
Wait.
Danny's voice sliced through the tension, his brow furrowed with suspicion. His eyes burned with doubt.
We need to consider something. What if this is a trap?
His gaze swept the room, the unspoken fears reflected at him in the eyes of those gathered.
Pilatus isn't known for mercy or mistakes. And why didn't Mom send her location herself? We've been getting her messages through the darknet for months.
The words hung heavy, but in them was a seed of uncertainty ready to take root. Tommy's jaw clenched, but his voice was steady.
Maybe she didn't know.
His gaze didn't waver as he met Danny's eyes.
Maybe they took her blindfolded. Or maybe...
His voice dropped to a whisper, filled with a pain he wouldn't speak aloud.
Maybe she didn't want anyone else dying over her.
The memory of that night 6 months ago pressed in like a phantom. Sage's last order echoing through the halls of their minds.
Retreat. Now.
Her voice had been diamond hard, unyielding, even as the vampires closed in. She had surrendered herself to Pilatus to save them, and they had obeyed, but not without a cost. Tommy's throat tightened, but he pushed the pain down where it couldn't show.
Every mission has its risks.
He said softly, his voice barely above the rustle of paper. Then armor coated his words.
But think of the reward.
He leaned forward, his hands braced against the table, his eyes piercing into the souls of those around him.
Rescuing Sage. Rescuing the Wraith. Striking at the heart of Pilatus himself. Pilatus has obsessed over her since the beginning, since before they took over the governments. We owe it to her.
His voice dropped, raw with emotion.
To everyone we've lost.
The silence that followed was not empty. It was pregnant with purpose. A quiet, burning resolve that spread through the room like wildfire. A wave of agreement rippled through the rebels, their fear momentarily drowned out by the roar of determination. They had no choice. This was not just a rescue mission. It was retribution.
But what about the northern base?
Cherry's voice, calm but edged with concern, broke through the murmur of assent. Her dark eyes met Tommy's, her question heavy with implications. Tommy didn't hesitate.
That's yours, Cherry.
Her brows lifted, but her expression was all business.
Get your team together. We'll send a message directing evacuation of families and non-combatants.
His tone was grim, a general issuing orders before a war that could end them all.
We'll take a small rescue team to the cathedral, no more than half a dozen. We go in and out, fast. The rest are yours.
His eyes locked on Cherry's, the unspoken command etched in the space between them.
Take the reinforcements to the north and kill those fuckers.
Cherry's lips curled into a dangerous smile.
Consider it done.
Tommy's voice was iron wrapped in velvet when he spoke again.
Let's gather the teams. We move out tomorrow at nightfall.
And somewhere beyond the stone walls, the night stirred, eager for blood. The moon hung low and sickly, its pale light strangled by the dense canopy of twisted branches above. Silver fingers struggled to pierce through the veil of night, casting fractured beams that barely illuminated the grim stage below. The air was thick, damp with the scent of moss and decay, as if the forest itself recoiled from the act about to unfold. A monument to betrayal had been erected in the clearing. The gallows stood like a skeletal sentinel, its wooden frame rough-hewn and splintered, as though hastily carved by hands eager to deliver judgment. The rope, thick and coarse, swung lazily in the night breeze, whispering promises of finality to the man who stood before it. Eli stumbled forward, his hands bound tightly behind him, wrists already raw and bleeding from his futile struggles. The two rebels who escorted him, faces carved from stone and hearts hardened by war, marched him toward his fate with the indifferent precision of executioners. The noose dangled before him like a serpent, a loop of judgment that promised only one outcome. And Eli's sin was beyond forgiveness. His eyes, once alight with deceit and false loyalty, were now dull and glassy, reflecting the inevitability of what was to come. The act of betrayal had long since extinguished the original, leaving only a hollow shell of the man they had once trusted. Tommy and Danny stood at the forefront of the gathered rebels, their faces etched with lines too deep for men so young. Brothers by blood, leaders by necessity, executioners by consequence. Tommy's jaw was clenched so tight it felt as if his teeth might crack, but he said nothing. His green eyes, mirrors of Sage's strength, betrayed no emotion, but his fists curled at his sides as if trying to crush the doubt that gnawed at the edges of his resolve. Betrayal left wounds deeper than any blade. Danny, pacing like a predator just out of reach, radiated barely contained fury. His movements were restless, his fingers flexing with the desire to strike. But it was not his hand that would deliver justice tonight. Specifically where? Tommy's question echoed in Eli's ears long after it was spoken. And now, with the answers given and the confession extracted, there was nothing left but judgment. Eli's knees buckled as he was positioned beneath the gallows, his breathing shallow, a pitiful whisper against the stillness of the forest. The noose was lowered, its shadow stretching like an omen across the damp earth, a grim reminder that some sins demand more than absolution. The gathered rebels formed a silent congregation, their faces masked by darkness and grief. This was no joyous execution, no triumph of crimes discovered. This was a crucifixion of trust. Eli's eyes lifted, seeking mercy where there was none.
Please.
His voice was a cracked whisper, barely audible, but he knew that any mercy had died long ago the moment innocent blood had been spilled. Tommy met his gaze, his expression unreadable.
Judas took 30 pieces of silver,
He murmured, his words a chilling benediction.
You took the blood of your brothers.
Eli flinched, tears pooling in his eyes as he glanced toward the sky. But even heaven had turned its back. No more words. Only silence. Tommy's boot slammed against the wooden platform with merciless force. The floor dropped away. Eli's body plummeted not far enough to break his neck, though the sudden jerk of the rope snapping his head back did so with a sickening crack. His limbs convulsed violently, the crude dance of death painting a morbid picture of agony. His legs kicked frantically, boots scuffing the edge of the crude scaffold as though seeking a toehold for a salvation that would never come. Veins bulged grotesquely in his neck, engorged and pulsing with the last futile struggles of life. The noose bit deeper, grinding against flesh, the fibers tearing through skin and muscle. His face turned a sickening shade of purple, the veins spidering beneath the surface as blood pooled where it could no longer flow. His tongue, swollen and useless, protruded grotesquely between his lips, contorting his face into a hideous mask of pain. His wide, bulging eyes reflected raw terror and regret, capturing the moment he truly understood the finality of his betrayal. Guttural grunts and strangled gurgles escaped his throat, each sound a grotesque note of suffering. His windpipe constricted, crushed beneath the relentless embrace of the noose, and with every fleeting second his struggles grew weaker, his defiance fading into the encroaching void. Bones ground together as his body jerked and spasmed, the dying embers of resistance flickering, one last time before surrendering to the dark. The tension in the rope was merciless, unyielding, until finally, stillness. The echo of death lingered in the air. Eli's lifeless body hung limp, the noose swaying gently, as if cradling the traitor's corpse in a perverse lullaby, a pendulum marking the passage of justice. The only sound was the rhythmic creak of the rope, a grim reminder that mercy had no place in this world. Tommy's fists clenched tighter, his knuckles white against the weight of what they had just done. Each twitch of Eli's legs had been an accusation, a reminder that justice carried a price for both the dead and the living. But betrayal was a cancer to the entire human race, and they had to cut it out. Inside Eli's fading mind, where terror clashed with regret, a single tear fought its way free, a lone drop of sorrow, not for himself, but for the shattered world he had helped damn, a tear for the woman who had inspired hope, and whose sons had now been forced to extinguish another life in her name. Danny stood rigid, his gaze locked on the lifeless body swaying above the earth. His anger had not burned away the emptiness left behind. He had expected vengeance to be satisfying, but all he felt was the chilling hollowness that came with taking a life, even one so undeserving. The gathered rebels stood in silence, their faces unreadable masks. Relief, sorrow, and grim satisfaction tangled in their hearts, but none spoke. This was war. And in war, mercy was weakness.
Let this be a warning.
Tommy's voice, when it finally came, was like the crack of a whip through the cold air.
We are at war, and all blood traitors will suffer the same fate.
The rebels bowed their heads, not in prayer, for God had long since abandoned this land, but in grim acknowledgement of the cost of survival. As the last echoes of justice faded into the forest, the moon turned away, hiding its light from the horrors man was forced to commit in the name of freedom. Eli's body hung as a silent warning, a testament to the unrelenting brutality of war and the reward for betrayal. And as Tommy and Danny turned away, they carried the weight of another soul added to their ledger. A soul weighed down by 30 pieces of blood. The gallows still whispered in their ears, the creak of rope, the last spasms of a traitor's body, and the suffocating stillness that followed. Echoes that refused to be silenced, no matter how far they walked from the place where Eli had paid the price for his sins. But there was no time for lingering ghosts. Tommy and Danny led the way, back into the heart of their rebellion, their boots kicking up dust that settled over the memories of the condemned. The strategy room, carved deep into the mountain's embrace, awaited them like a tomb filled with the artifacts of a dying cause. Maps, blueprints, and battle plans lay strewn across the scarred wooden table, fluttering slightly in the draft that wormed through the stone cracks. The lanterns hanging from the ceiling flickered with restless energy, their weak flames casting erratic shadows that danced like harbingers of doom on the cold stone walls. Every flicker seemed to breathe life into the whispered warnings of those who had died before, silent voices urging caution, reminding them of the cost of failure. Tommy stood at the table's head, his broad shoulders squared with the burden of command. His green eyes scanned the chaos before him with a steely focus, but beneath that mask of control, the weight of what was to come pressed down on him like a stone slab. Every map, every line drawn across the parchment was etched in blood, the blood of those who had fought and died to get them this far.
Here.
Tommy's voice cut through the tension, low and steady, but the undertone of urgency was impossible to miss. His finger traced a jagged route across the blueprint of the cathedral's vaults, a path carved through shadows and secrets.
This is where they're holding her.
The room seemed to shrink around them. The walls, once a haven for strategy and planning, now felt suffocating, a silent reminder that the fate of their rebellion rested on this one mission.
We'll hit the east entrance.
Tommy murmured, his gaze narrowing as he traced their intended path through a labyrinth of catacombs and underground corridors.
Through the old parking structure, less visibility, fewer patrols.
His jaw clenched.
If Eli's intel holds.
Eli's ghost hung in the air, a lingering specter of betrayal. Danny stood beside him, his face shadowed by the dim glow of the lanterns. The flickering light caught the hard planes of his jaw, highlighting the grim determination that had settled into his features. But his fingers drummed lightly on the edge of the table, a habit he hadn't shaken since childhood, a tell that revealed the storm raging beneath his composed exterior.
I'll lead the front assault.
Danny's voice was steady, but there was a hunger in it. A hunger for vengeance, for redemption.
It's the riskiest route, but I know the streets of D.C. better than anyone.
His finger hovered over the map, tracing an alternate route that led through the ruins of old Washington.
I can guide us through the back alleys and collapsed tunnels.
Tommy's gaze met his brother's, the weight of unspoken understanding passing between them. This wasn't just about strategy. This was personal.
You're sure?
I'm sure.
Danny's voice left no room for argument. The fire in his blue eyes burned too brightly for Tommy to extinguish. He was ready to do whatever it took, even if it meant facing death head on. One by one, the rebels around the table claimed their roles, each volunteer stepping into the unfolding narrative like pieces moving on a chessboard. Cherry, her expression hardened by the weight of command, claimed the northern defense.
I'll handle the evacuation of the northern base,
she said, her voice cool but edged with steel.
We'll pull out the families and torch the supplies before the bloodsuckers get their hands on anything useful.
Tommy gave a curt nod.
Good. Make them regret ever stepping foot on our soil.
The others followed suit, claiming their parts in the intricate ballet of war. Each understood the stakes, recognizing that unity was their greatest weapon and that sacrifice might be demanded of them before all was done. They weren't just planning an assault. They were preparing to walk into the jaws of death. Tommy straightened, his hands bracing against the edge of the table as he surveyed the surrounding faces. Every set of eyes reflected the same grim resolve that burned in his chest.
Everyone gets some sleep.
The words felt hollow, but there was no room for sentiment now.
Both teams leave at dusk. And remember, timing is everything.
His gaze locked onto Danny's, then moved across the room, meeting the eyes of every rebel gathered.
If we miss our window, Sage dies. And if she dies...
Tommy's voice dropped to a whisper, but the weight behind it was crushing.
Then we all die.
The silence that followed was heavier than any speech could have been. A silence that carried the weight of understanding, the cold kiss of mortality pressing against their throats. As they dispersed to prepare, to gather their weapons, their thoughts, and their courage. The strategy room grew colder. The lanterns flickered, casting distorted shadows that twisted and writhed across the walls like vengeful spirits. Whispers of martyrs filled the room, voices of the fallen echoing from the darkness. They whispered of sacrifice, of hope, and of blood. Tommy lingered, his fingertips brushing against the map one last time. The route to the cathedral was etched into his mind, but the path forward was shrouded in uncertainty. His heart pounded with the weight of every life that hung in the balance.
Please.
He murmured, a whispered prayer to the mother who had taught him how to survive in a world gone mad.
Hold on.
As the room emptied and the last echoes of footsteps faded, the oppressive silence pressed down on him once more. The hours ahead would either see them as liberators or send them to join the countless martyrs whose whispers already seemed to fill the air. And if they failed, Sage Steele's final chapter would be written in blood. On one of the grand cathedral's shadowed balconies, Pilatus paced. The stone beneath his feet was cold and unyielding, mirroring the unease that had taken root in his heart. His keen ears picked up the subtle shift in tone amongst his subjects, whispers that were not of reverence, but of doubt. Sage's writings, spread like a virus through Facefang, had done their work well, seeding discord among the once unwaveringly loyal vampires.
More guards.
He barked at a nearby attendant, who bowed hastily before scurrying away.
And double the surveillance on all communication channels.
His voice echoed off the vaulted ceilings, betraying the brittleness of his paranoia. The walls inside seemed to listen, festooned with ancient tapestries from Rome that bore witness to centuries of dominance of the Roman Empire. Now they seemed to look upon the Crimson Empire and its blood monarch as insurrection threatened them from within and without. Pilatus's grip tightened around the iron balcony railing, his knuckles blanching as he looked out over the streets of the former human capital, a silent vow to crush any uprising before it could draw breath. Dusk settled over the rebel base, painting the sky in bruised shades of crimson and gold. The air hummed with tension as weapons were checked and rechecked, magazines loaded with meticulous care. Maps were folded and stashed away, while whispered prayers echoed softly in the corners of the bunker. Tommy found Danny standing alone near the edge of camp, his silhouette etched against the dying light. His expression was hard, carved from the same iron resolve that had kept them alive all these years.
We knew it would come to this,
Tommy murmured, stepping beside his brother, their shoulders nearly touching. Danny's jaw clenched, but his voice was steady.
Risking everything for one life? She wouldn't want that.
His gaze stayed fixed on the horizon.
But she's more than just our mother, Tommy. She's the reason they haven't broken us.
Tommy nodded, his hand clapping lightly on Danny's back.
Then let's make sure she doesn't pay the price for our failure.
Their eyes met, a silent vow passing between them. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Like always. Before another word could be spoken, a sudden shift in the air announced Cherry's arrival.
Steele?
Her voice was low, but her intent was anything but subtle. Danny lacked time to react before Cherry closed the distance, her hands gripping his shirt as if anchoring herself to him. Her lips crashed into his, the kiss fierce and unrelenting. Their bodies molded together, a collision of heat and desperation that had simmered too long beneath the surface. Her grip around him tightened, pulling him deeper into the embrace as if she sought to merge their very beings into one. Their breaths mingled in the space between them. Each exhale was a testament to the fiery passion that burned within. Tommy, wide-eyed, stood frozen as Cherry pulled back, her breath mingling with Danny's in the fading light. A smirk tugged at her lips as she patted his ass with a teasing slap.
You keep that warm for me, Steele,
she murmured, her voice a sultry promise.
until I get back.
Danny, grinning like an idiot, called after her as she walked rapidly away.
Right back at you.
Tommy shook his head, his lips twitching.
Isn't she closer to Mom's age than yours?
Danny's grin only widened.
Jealous?
Tommy's fist connected with Danny's arm, eliciting a dramatic
Ow.
from his younger brother.
I'm telling Mom.
Tommy deadpanned, already walking away.
Oh, come on.
Danny groaned, chasing after him.
Don't do me like that, bro.
Their banter faded as they rejoined the others, but the shift was tangible. The moment of levity vanished, replaced by a cold, lethal resolve that settled over the rebels like a second skin. Vehicles rumbled to life, engines growling softly in the encroaching dark. Every rebel was armored not just with weapons, but with the grim determination of those who had already buried too many friends. As they pulled away from the base, the haunting image of Eli's lifeless body swaying from the gallows in their rear-view mirrors burned into their minds, a chilling reminder of what failure cost. And as the night swallowed them whole, Tommy and Danny's thoughts were the same. Rescue Sage or die trying.
This story is still unfolding, so subscribe and follow the pulse of the night. New chapters rise soon, and those who are bound to this channel will hear them the moment they awaken.